So, Danny, you and your brothers had launched out and essentially just started this company. What were you doing beforehand? I mean, were you working? Were you in school? What were you giving up when you were getting ready to launch out in this new idea that you'd never done before?
So we were all doing different things. I was actually the dork of the family. I graduated college early, and I rushed into like the corporate world, the 9 to 5 suit, briefcase. That's what I always envisioned my life being, and I really caught myself continually staring at the clock on the wall, always checking to see it's 4:45, 15 minutes left, and I can get out of here. And I realized I didn't want that. I didn't want that to be my life. I didn't. That's not what I thought it was going to be, and it's okay. I tried it, and it just wasn't for me. But I didn't want my life to always be a countdown to 5 o'clock to make it the happy hour or whatever it may be. But I just, when we started this company, shortly after that, when I left that job, I left it right away. Once my brothers and I were like, "Hey, let's do something together." When we started whipping up these concoctions in the kitchen, when I realized it wasn't a job is when there were like multiple nights, it's like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and we're just sitting there whipping up these batches and doing these different things in the kitchen. And I didn't have a clock, I didn't have a timer. There was no punch in, punch out. We loved it. It was awesome. We were smiling, having a great time. And that's when I knew I'd never look back.
I think that's huge. It's when you realize that it's more, I mean, as millennials, we want to enjoy and love what we're doing, and we want to be a part of something bigger than just us. And I don't want to be trading my life for a paycheck. Like, I don't want to be counting down, wasting minutes because, it's time is precious, and we want to be doing something that actually is making a difference in changing things. I'm curious. So you work with your brothers, but do you guys work with people of other generations? Like, have you found it difficult? Like, do they look at you guys like a bunch of young kids? Like, what are you guys talking about? Like, is there that challenge of being like the young kid in the business world?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it took a few years for, I guess that credibility is the word I'll use, to become credible enough to take seriously. At first, like, who are these kids? I mean, I sat down in some really big meetings with some big executives, some big franchises. And they're just probably like, I felt that way. I felt like they were looking at me across the table going, who is this rugrat and what does he want? And he's wasting my time. And I don't feel that way anymore, thankfully, but I think, it took a while to have a leg to stand on and say, wait a minute. And if you can talk the talk and deliver, then they won't ever look at you like that again. And no one has ever looked like us that again. But it brings me back to that market. It fuels me. It motivates me. I remember people walking by and chuckling. My father and my mother were there, like, helping us get started, and they saw those people's faces. And I know that it probably was tough for them to see that. My kids are starting a skincare line, and people were snickering and probably making fun of us behind closed doors. And we just said, you know what? We're going to show them. And I always think about that. And I just use that as motivation, not anger. It's okay. Everybody has their own opinion, but I just use that. And that's the spark that ignites the fire.
That's huge. I love that. With your business, you have some background in marketing, and I know that that's part of, I think, of what you had studied. Did you feel prepared to start a business? I mean, what kind of business training or background did you have to start a company?
Not really. I mean, we used the Paint program on Microsoft Paint to make our logo in my bedroom. I mean, we're like sitting there in bed doodling.
With like the little
brush. I don't even think there's an undo tool, so like we couldn't mess up because you couldn't undo. It was like, but that's what made it fun, and that's what made it so amazing. So many people come to me now and they have these proposals and these plans. I'm like, just do it. Stop sitting behind a keyboard. Just go out there. Just run with it. Fine tune it later, but you've got to get started. Don't get stuck preparing. Get out there, see what it's like. And I really think that's what helped us. Again, it brings back the naivety, but I didn't go to a graphic designer and say, I need the finest logo. Let me invest $1,000. No, here you go. Kinko's, at the time it was Kinko's, now it's FedEx Office, made a couple sticker prints, slapped it on the jar, got it out there. And I think I didn't waste my time investing in 5,000 units, because those 5,000 units are nothing like they are today. They needed to be altered. They needed to be internally altered and externally. The look, the feel, the taste of the whole product and the way it was presented, I wanted you to salivate when you saw it on the shelf. And it wasn't that appealing in the beginning. So I needed to work on that. I need to work on the rancidity, the bacteria, the shelf life of the product. Those things organically took time to understand. They put a coin in the jar.
I was gonna say, put it in the organic jar. Um, yeah, I mean, you're not limited by the fact that you know, however many letters you can or can't have behind your name, that's somehow going to justify you. A lot of it is just, you know, getting out there and figuring it out on your own. I'm curious, did you always think of yourself as an entrepreneur?
You know, I don't know the phrase for it. I'm gonna have to make one up. But I'm not an entrepreneur, but we are the best darn entrepreneurs I've ever seen. We are all like four pieces to a puzzle. When you put us together, it's like a beast of an entrepreneur. It's incredible. But we needed the legs to stand upon one another, and I really believe that. Whether it's just motivating each other or just somebody thinking from a different perspective, it made us an incredible entrepreneur that we've turned into. But no, honestly, when I was in college, I wasn't like, I was thinking differently. I certainly think I was thinking differently and thinking outside the box and doing unique things. But I didn't say one day I'm going to run my own company. And I still don't run my own company. We run an incredible company. And that's what makes it successful. I needed the assistance from my brothers. I will never deny that.
So working with family is always fun and exciting, but just working with a team in general can be a challenge. What are kind of two of the biggest things that you've learned working with other people?
So hopefully you're not going to say I leave you today with like, what advice can you give me? Because I'm going to give it now. My piece of advice I always give to somebody is find a partner. If you don't have a relative, I mean, I recommend a relative because blood is thicker than water, and you might fight, you might wrestle, but you can really trust that person. But if you can truly find a business partner that you really trust in and out, go with it. I mean, it's really tough out there. And if you can have someone to just help you through the tough times, when you've got those moments of weakness, just someone to pick you up, that's just as important. You know, some people feel tied to, well, I thought of this idea, so I want to do this. I say no, like, don't think that way. There are successful people that have made it on their own, but it's becoming very saturated out there. There's a lot of competition. Take someone under your wing or be taken under someone else's wing and be willing to work together. It's going to show you who you are as an individual and what your work ethic is like, because I think you need to bounce ideas off of somebody. You need to have someone else in the room to keep you going. I think working with an individual is imperative.
Yeah, you have to have someone that is going to be like, that's an awesome idea, or that's the worst idea in the world, and really like keep things
early
in
on. I hated
perspective.
it. Not to cut you off, I was like, dude, this is such a good idea. And my brother's like, dude, you're stupid. Shut up. And you know, because everybody goes through that. They go through that. You think you've got this genius concept. And that's why I love having my brothers, because they're straight shooters. They'll be like, you're a moron. Shut up. You know, but they'll tell you like it is. And
They like put you in a headlock in the middle of the
exactly.
Monday morning meeting.
But it's so important. It's so important to have that truth behind it, because you know what? Drop it, move on to the next thing. Be bitter about it for 5 seconds, get over it. And I've done it with my brothers as well. I've looked them straight in the eyes and said, I'm sorry, my idea is better. And then we, you know, have my other brother like, it's better. And in other times, maybe his idea is better. But you need someone to just say, look, that's not the best way to go about it. Let's try this. And all of your ideas aren't going to be, you know, home runs.
So you kind of talked a little bit about this, about your own kind of idea of entrepreneurship and not really feeling like you have always been kind of cut out to be an entrepreneur. But do you think that people can be entrepreneurs and not own their own company?
Definitely. You know, and I think the thing about an entrepreneur, the title sometimes bothers me because people really love to toss it around. I mean, they love to say, I'm an entrepreneur, I own a babysitter company or this or that. You know, being an entrepreneur, I think there's so much more to it, and it's extremely deep. And I think the definition needs more to it than what it has in Webster's online dictionary right now. Because I feel like if somebody, you know, goes to sunbiz.org and registers a company and starts, you know, selling lemonade in their front yard, they're an entrepreneur. But I think entrepreneurs are people who truly change an industry, who truly make an impact in their field. And I really think that a lot of people misbrand the word entrepreneur. So it's something that kind of bothers me a little bit because I see a lot of people use that as a term to sound cooler while having a drink at the bar and hitting on girls or whatever it may be. And I just think it's just so thrown around the wrong way. So I don't ever call myself like walk into a room and say I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner, and here's what I have to offer, and you can label me the way you'd label me. And I think that's the best way to go about it. I think when people say, I want to be an entrepreneur. Now what do I do? It's just, why don't you think about what you're going to do and worry about your title later? I think that's really important. I don't even know if we put our titles on our business cards because it's not, it's to me, it's just, I'm Danny Nardo, Nardo's Natural, and I'll answer the phone on a sales call, and so will the sales reps or the customer service department. I'm going to pick up the phone as quickly as they'd pick it up to talk to people. I'm not going to put myself on a different pedestal.
I love that. And I completely agree. I had someone recently who said, they're like, hi, nice to meet you, an entrepreneur. And the person next to them was like, oh, you're unemployed.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad somebody else gets it,
It's like calling yourself a consultant or something. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like very general, very
so big. Exactly.
No, I think and honestly, I'm glad you made that point though, because I think for those people who are entrepreneurs, and you're really talking about those who are like making a big impact, the game changers within an industry.
Absolutely.
Those people who have the blood, sweat, and toil, who have really invested in completely shifting and changing, they're not the same as someone who just kind of like went and put their shingle out there and it just started getting business. Like there's a different level of investment. And I think that needs to be highlighted because we need to have more industry shapers rather than just entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. Now, you can be a business owner. There's nothing wrong with that. Or we need to think of a different term for those mega entrepreneurs that are changing the industry so they get a better wording.
So how do you see the economy changing in the next, 5 to 10 years as more and more millennials start businesses?
The way the economy was when we started our company, it was really down and out. I mean, engineers, these people that are very educated were losing their jobs. That's what made it easier for us to get involved in starting a company because we said, why not take the risk now? Why not jump? Because people were losing their jobs. The housing market was crashing. Let's just take advantage. I don't want to say take advantage of the economy, but take advantage of the situation of the economy where it was at that point. And we knew that I could go for interviews for jobs left and right, but so many people were losing their jobs. So it was just tough at the time. And that's what helped me. That was a leverage at the time that helped me launch my company. Now we are on this slight uphill slope. I'm not saying it's anywhere where it used to be, but it's going up. Which means I think that it's going to be a little bit more difficult because at the time, banks were handing out loans and doing things, and then it just collapsed. So now it's harder to accrue money, to get investors, to get backers. So it is challenging, personally, to do that. And I think things are turning around now in the corporate America. It's starting to slowly get back on the tracks. So the hiring is coming back. The kids out of college are able to get some more job opportunity than I had at the time, many years ago, because I'm an old man. But
very old.
I think that's going to pose a little bit of a threat, though, for these entrepreneurs, because I think things are slowly turning around, which is fantastic. I don't want to say it's a bad thing. We need the economy to start spiraling in the positive direction. It's easier to take a risk when things are going downhill, but we still are not where we were, which means there's opportunity. So I don't want to be downhearted about it. Still opportunity to take risks, but you can't walk into a bank right now and say, hey, I'm starting a landscaping company. I need $200,000. They're not giving it to you. Were they 10 years ago? Yeah, they were. So it's tough. And you've got to find ways because money is the oxygen to business. Without it, you can't breathe. And I give that, I say that in my speeches to these colleges. You need money to get started. Ours started with very little capital, but we were able to make it happen. Unfortunately, you need some money, so you've got to figure out a way to find backing. And with the way the economy is going, I think in the uphill direction, it's going to be harder to seek that out.
Yeah, I completely agree. So when you're looking at advising young people who are interested in starting companies, where do you even say where to start? Are you encouraging them to become self-funding, to find investors, to go the VC route, to go to banks? If I'm a millennial, where do I go?
So here's what I recommend. It's one of the things I call like the what if factor. You know, a lot of people start a company. We'll use mine, for example, to make it easier. You know, when I got started, like, what if I sold to every Walmart? What if I sold to every Walgreens? And this is when I had no sales at the time, just that what if factor. You're dreaming. Well, when people take that into consideration, they start going, wait a minute, well, now I need inventory. Because what if I do sell to 200 locations, 2,000 locations? So now I've got to go and make a lot of inventory because I might get these sales. I say, don't do any of that. Why don't you go acquire the sales and let them know when it's going to be available? Go work your rear end off, make those sales, run home, and then bite your fingernails off and say, I don't have any inventory. But then you have opportunity to spend money in inventory because the funds will be coming in. I see so many people sitting on pallets at warehouses. One day this is going to sell, and they've got all that capital tied up. For what? Worry about it later. And this is in the early stages. I mean, save that money. Like, worry about it later. I can't stress that enough. And that's something we did. I mean, I'd make a sale and say, yeah, oh, yeah, I've got that. Oh, we've got masks. Oh, we've got toners. We've got cleansers. You're going to love this. And we had maybe 6 in inventory, and they bought 100. I don't know. And I'm like, ah. But that's the best feeling, knowing that that money is coming in. So when you're whipping those batches together, they're already sold. There's nothing better than that. It's already going out the door as soon as you stick that seal on it. And that's what I love.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of lean startup, right? So getting that minimum viable product out there, because without it, you have no idea. It's just, you know, you and your friends, or in your case, your brother, saying, this is a really great idea, without any sort of idea if anyone's actually going to buy it. So I'd rather sell you something and then delight you later, rather than just have a whole bunch of stuff I'm never gonna.
Absolutely. And not to mention tweaks, you know, upgrades, improvements. You've got to take those into consideration. It's going to happen. So many people think it's perfect early on. It ain't.
Like, it was not cute, it was not sexy, but
yeah, it just needed, you know, it needed a little improvement. And like, that's going to be that way with everything. I don't care if it's a computer chip, it can have an improvement to prevent malware, or an upgrade to be lighter, or hold the battery life longer. I mean, you see Apple phones and computers, they're constantly being improved. So you've got to always take that into consideration.
I think that's a really great point. Okay, so we're at the end of our interview, and now I get to ask you the lightning round. So I didn't really prepare you for these, so I'm really excited to kind of spring them on you, but I'm sure that you'll be doing fine. So just feel free to answer however you feel most most inspired. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, there's only a few. So the first is, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Don't give up too early. Mark Cuban. Love it. Too many people give up. Do not. Keep pushing through the wall.
Good. Okay, so what do you wish that you knew back then when you were starting your company that you know now?
Almost everything. That's too easy of an answer. I would just say, honestly, if I just was a little bit more fine-tuned with the financials and the accounting, and really getting a bookkeeping team together early on, that's really important for down the road. When you want to go through your statistics and your analytics, it's really important. Early on, you're just acquiring sales and you're excited. Worry about that early on, because you need to figure out the stats between, in my business, the recurring rate, customers coming back and buying again, how frequently, what demographic, what's their disposable income, how much money do they make. You need to understand that for targeting tactics down the road.
So good. Okay, so what 2 books are you reading right now?
One, and I just reading it again, but Who Moved My Cheese? Love it.
I've heard really good things about that book. I still haven't read it yet.
So good. Well, it's just good for all of us, because a bunch of people in one room moving the cheese can be, you'll get bit.
That's hilarious. Okay, so what is the biggest mistake that you've made in business?
Not reading the fine print. You know, naive. You know, you're a family business. You're a good, wholesome, all-American family. I'm grateful my parents raised us the right way. I would never rip anybody off. And we signed a contract, unfortunately, with a company at one point in time that had promised something that didn't come to fruition. And in the contract, there was no guarantee. And we wanted out, and they wouldn't let us out. And I thought that was really not right of them to take advantage of us, and they took us for a lot of money.
Yeah, that's really good Really good advice. Okay, last question. It's my favorite. It's kind of silly, but if the 12-year-old version of you met you today, what would he think?
You got fat. No, no.
I've never heard that one before.
No, I think he'd be proud. I think more than ever, he'd just be happy to see the whole family still together. And I'm hoping that the 29-year-old version says the same thing to the 50-year-old version of me. I just am so grateful for that my family's able to work together, and my mom and dad will come into the warehouse and do things. And to me, that's success. When people say, what is your definition or how do you measure success? It's not about sitting on a boatload of cash or driving into the sunset on your boat. It's if your family's on that boat with you. And that's really important to me. That's just how I was raised, and I stand by it.
So good. Well, I hope everybody was paying attention and taking notes. There was definitely some key quotables from Danny and Nardo. So thank you so much for joining us, and really stoked and appreciative of your time today. So thanks.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.